Hey, it's Ben Spees. It's a sad thing. You have nothing better to do than to listen to me on Soupkast.
Welcome to the surface of Superbike Planet.
The SuperbikePlanet.com podcast, Soupkast, is brought to you by American Honda.
Hi, and welcome to Soupkast number 3 for May 27th, 2006. This is actually our first official Soupkast, and at this time we'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank those in the Soup Army who listened to the first 2 podcasts we did, and then gave their very helpful feedback, which in turn will make future podcasts better, or not quite as bad, whichever you may prefer. Remember, it's Soupkast with a K. Again, after 15 years of writing for the brain, we're somewhat switching gears on this project and now are writing for the ear, which is slightly different. We'll continue to improve as we find our way with this medium and the technology that goes along with it. In this Soupkast, we offer you a long interview with current U.S. Superbike phenom Ben Spees. Then we talk with Soup's U.S. Superbike rider Evan Williams. He and I trade thoughts on a variety of subjects in a short chat. Then we'll have a rant on Infineon or Sears Point. And finally, we preview this weekend's WSBK event at Silverstone. Okay, let's get on it. The Ben Spees interview starts now. Evan and I tag-team interviewed Spees in a small, dark room at an Infineon before the weekend's races happened. And Ben was, as you'll hear, unsure that he could even beat Mat Mladin. The interview started off with me reading aloud the headlines to all the Ben Spees stories that ran in the local California newspapers before the race, including the one where Spees' mother blasted Mat Mladin. Evan and I here are chatting with Ben Spees. Ben, welcome to the Soupkast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'd like to read a few of the press articles, at least the headlines here. Let's start with this one. Watch your back, Matt. This is in the local press today. What else do we have here? There's a couple of interesting ones. Mladin is finally feeling the pressure. Spees in control of Superbike.
I didn't make the titles.
Here's the best
yes.
one. Biker's mom isn't out to make friends. I think that's about your mom.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about all the attention?
It's good. It's, I'm happy to be where I'm at. We got a little bit of a points lead, and, things are kind of clicking right along. It's, don't feel like I'm riding any harder than last year, not taking any other chances. Just have the bike working really well. And, the whole hoopla about, me taking over Matt's place or me doing whatever. It's, it's 4 in a row, and I guess it's not a fluke, but it's also, I got to do it for the whole year. And it's going to be tough. Matt's the hardest rider, in the paddock, and he's a 6-time champ. He's definitely going to change his strategies up to bring up his level again. And it's I don't think by any means I have control over anything, and but I'm glad, because a lot of people were trying to put pressure on me, like, oh, you're 19 points lead, you got to keep doing this. And I'm gonna keep riding as hard as I can and keep doing what I can do, but I really don't feel like the pressure's on me. I feel like it is actually on him a bit to counter it, and come back and start winning again. And that's fine, because it's my sophomore year in the class, and I'm doing all I can do and what I can do right now, and it seems to be working. And we'll see if it keeps going on. But like I said, I think more the pressure's on him to come back and be where he's been at, and we'll just kind of let it see what happens.
Truly, what were your expectations before the season started? Did you think I'll win a couple races this year,
We didn't have, we had a little bit of testing, and ever since we had the new forks, I was real confident. The bike, I could, with 15 laps on the front tire, I could ride it like I wanted to, and that was a big complaint last year. I could feel how good the bike was. I just couldn't I couldn't ride it to its potential. I felt like it was holding me back some, but that was probably me with setup issues or whatnot, not being able to get, 95% out of the bike like you need. And I feel like we're after testing, I'm getting a lot better with setup. I'm learning about the computer. I'm learning about just what suspension links and all that stuff does. And, it's a pretty good off-season. Me and Matt never even faced off in a test, so it was good. There was no pressure. I went out and rode, and Daytona was good. I felt like we kind of had the upper hand just in around the track, but we didn't get it done. We lost air, and Barber and Fontana was good to us. And, so far this weekend it's going good too. And just got to see if it keeps dry. And, we just got to keep clicking along and doing what we're doing, not changing anything and not trying to ride for championship yet. Just, keep riding hard.
Is this one of the tracks where you think you might have a harder time of it?
It's a tough track. It's a rider's track, which is good. I do like this track. I've won a couple pro races here. I've always been fast here. Last year I didn't like the way the bike worked, so it was not a good weekend. It was our worst weekend, but I feel if the bike is right, where I can ride it 100% and know how I can ride, I think we can be fine. I don't know if we'll leave him. I don't know if he'll leave us, but I think we can be right there with him, and it should be a good race. And it's my fitness right now. There's nothing I could have changed. I'm the fittest I've ever been, and that's haven't been slacking off at all. I haven't been overtraining. Just I'm right where I need to be, and it's just we'll see what happens in the race. But everything's coming along really good, and I'm happy being where I'm at with the team, and being 21 and being able to race with Matt, on the same motorcycle as him, which is tough. People don't understand when he did get beat by Nicky and got beat by some Hondas, he was in a deficit. I mean, for sure. And I'm on the same exact motorcycle as him, and I don't get to spend as much time as he does at the test because it's no excuses, but I'm having to ride two bikes, which I'm younger, not proven, so I have to do that and until I can be a Superbike only guy. But that definitely hurts when he gets 50% more time at a test on that bike, and every time he rides that bike, it's the same way, same thing, and I'm always jumping from 100 horsepower, forks, brakes, and all that stuff, and it makes it tough, but it is what it is, and we've got to go along with it.
The 600, Suzuki's got you doing double duty. It's, some riders prefer that. They like to have more track time, and they like to be on the bikes more. Some riders don't, and whether it's helping your situation or not is certainly debatable. Your thoughts?
Maybe going to a new track, it helps. I, for one, right now, for a couple of years, want to ride two classes. Would rather be in super stock right now. I feel like my style's changed slowly to the big bikes. 600, it's starting to hurt me a little bit. It's hard racing with Raj and Jamie. They're already riding so good. They're about 20 pounds lighter than you, and it's tough. And I definitely think it hurts me a little bit on the big bike switching. When I only have, especially on Sunday when I have to race. What is it, 60, 70K. Have a 15-minute break, have to jump and race Matt 100K, the hardest superbike rider I believe in the world. And it's tough when you don't have that much of a break. It doesn't matter how good a shape you're in when you're racing in a track like this. It's a hydration and stuff like that. It's tough, and I'd like to ride a couple more years in two classes. I would like it to be the super stock class, which is what it's going to be next year. And after that, superbike only would be good, and go from there. But right now, it's really tough, and it's really tough not having any points in the position I'm in and going riding the thing 100%. So it's tough on me. But they're trying to keep my head straight, and they're trying to stay focused on it. But when you got a 19-point lead in the premier class, it's hard to stay focused.
Yeah. You're not signed up for next year yet. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's we're working on something right now. I definitely want to stay with Suzuki. That's my main goal. I feel like I've been loyal to them. I've been with them since I was 15, and when I was about 17, another manufacturer came to me and they said, "Hey, factory ride, all this great stuff," which would have happened, but I was like, "No, I'll stay another year on a satellite team if I can get on the factory team," and that's what happened. And hopefully they remember that kind of stuff. And yeah, the main objective is to stay with Suzuki. Things just have to be right, not all money. Just it's the team, it's the way things go. It's I want to be, by the time Matt's gone, I'll be 23, turning 24. I want to have my, own team, I guess you would call it, like he does. I mean, he's kind of got his little inner deal. We're all a big team, but everybody knows, Matt has his own kind of his deal going on, and that's what I want. I want my own 18-wheeler. I want a real strong crew. I want to be able to because that's what a rider needs. He has to have a lot of confidence, and that's what Matt has. And it's I don't know. I'm not signed up for sure. Just in the works with some stuff, and there's definitely some other offers and stuff like that. But it's pretty early right now.
A lot of people think that being teamed with Mat Mladin has destroyed Aaron Yates' career on a superbike. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that, in that he's always been teamed with the most dominant guy and that it's hurt him. Your thoughts?
It definitely, when you have somebody that just dominates on a motorcycle and you got to race him, it's, it can shoot your confidence down pretty good. I mean, it's one of those deals like, young people jumping over to GPs just to be in GPs destroys their confidence. I mean, you go over on bikes you don't know, tracks you've never been on, maybe on inferior motorcycles since you're probably not going to get on a factory team. They just shoot your confidence down. And Aaron's come through. He's won super sport, super stock titles, and he's gone good on the superbike. He I really can't answer that. I don't know. It's just I know it could be tough, being in his position when you're getting beat majority of the time on the superbike. But Aaron's a great guy, and he's definitely, when it comes to super stock rider, he's one of the best out there. And Matt's admitted that on super stock bikes he's not the greatest, and we've seen that in the past. And if he jumped on a super stock bike, Aaron might hand him his butt every weekend. We don't know the things. And Matt's got his super bike where he pretty much every year they just kind of make the things better, but he's he keeps his same riding style, and it kind of incorporates with any bike he gets on with the Suzuki. And he's just got it where he's comfortable on it, and he can. That's another thing. He can get up to speed so fast, and every time, like I said, he gets on the bike, it's the same bike. And Aaron's always split duties too. He's never been just a super bike only guy. Whether that helps a whole lot, I'm not going to know for a couple years till I'm on one bike. But you can only imagine when you're on that same motorcycle and it's the same thing every time. It's got to get your abilities to set up a bike, to develop a bike that much better, instead of having to jump from a 600 and super bike and try to develop both of them. It's got to be tough. But it's a hard question to ask about Aaron. It's kind of what you got to ask him, I guess. But he gives it 100%. I know I share a truck with him, and every time we're talking about stuff, how to try to make things better and stuff like that. So he's definitely trying.
Matt can be a really intimidating guy to be teamed with.
Yeah, you can. I know for a fact he can be, and he does his mind games, and that's good. He definitely. Some people take it. I did the first couple of years. I mean, I was definitely scared of him. Last year, we had a couple altercations that were, it just happened, and now I know that's how he is. I really feel he really does like me, genuinely. When he's with the track, he's all business. He wants to win. He's going to do whatever it takes to win. I'm the type, we can be friends, race, bump, do whatever, go eat dinner that night. I'll race you harder than anybody. He sometimes likes to play head games. He hasn't, nothing's really happened between us to start anything this year. I don't know if things will. I think he does actually respect me now, because he's, he had a couple mechanicals, and the second race at Fontana, I heads up finally beat him. And he knows, he was on that same motorcycle, he knows how hard it is to ride that pace and to do what I did. If I can do that the rest of the season, I have no clue, and he's probably going to hand me my butt, a few more times, and I'm not scared of it, and I know it might happen. But no, he's definitely a fierce competitor. But I've looked over the Mat Mladin number one, and it's just a guy I need to beat, and I got to beat, and that's just how it is now.
You and airplanes, what's the deal?
Man, I can't see what's going on. I'm a control freak, but there's been talk about GP stuff. Overseas stuff. I'm flying to the Bahamas in like a month vacation, so I'll get on a plane. I don't like it. While I'm over in America, I'll probably take my bus everywhere, because I stop a lot, bicycle. I like my own pillow and blanket, take my dogs. I like doing my thing. But the MotoGP, everybody thinks it's out of the question. I don't think the track suit my style. I'm a bit bigger. I don't know if I can run with those guys. I mean, Nicky's had a hard time of it, but then again, no disrespect to Nick at all. But I've seen, when Nick was my age, when he was on the Honda, he could beat Matt, half the time, half not. But he was also had a way better bike, and he knew that. And now I know, I'm running with Matt on the same bike. Hopefully he can do it for the rest of the year. And, I sometimes wonder, I look at Nick, and, he struggled for a couple years, but he's got it together now. And it's like, man, I could probably do that too. But, if I get a chance, I definitely don't want to do it in the next 2 years. But it's something that if I feel I want to know how I stack up in the world, I might do it. But, yeah, the plane, it's something, I just suck up a couple times, do it. And then, after we went to Malaysia a couple years ago, after the third jumping on and off the plane, I was fine with it. I would rather drive 20 hours and spend 2 hours in a plane. But I'll get on one, and, if I want to go test on one, it might happen. And if there's a chance I can do the last maybe MotoGP race this year and get a chance to do that, I'll be on a plane, so we'll see.
Is there a chance you could do MotoGP this year?
We've talked about it. We definitely talked about testing a little bit. They definitely want me to just see how it goes, and because I have ridden GP, but I know they're way different. But I have ridden GP bikes in the past, and I was very fast on them, and I know the bikes are evolving. I think I could ride one halfway decent. It's just one of those things. I think when I say, hey, I want to test it, maybe when our season's over, if there's a couple races, I can do a couple wild cards. I don't think they're against it at all. It's just something that probably would be talked about at some point.
Is the example of John Hopkins weigh on your mind at all, in that John went over there basically unproven, but he got on an okay team, and the other team saw that he had some potential, and the fact that he was in GP/MotoGP sort of helped him to get a better ride if you're in front of those guys?
Exactly. They probably have no clue what's going on over here, really. I mean, they don't. They probably don't watch it much, but John went over there, and it was one of those deals that's either it's going to take a couple years, he's going to keep a strong head, which he is. I mean, he's very focused. He's very he wants to win. Or if he's going to get beat, he's going to come back and not be the same person, like we've seen, in the past 10 years. A few Americans have went over to World Superbike or GP, come back here, and they can't ride anymore. They just forgot how almost. You get your confidence shattered, but he definitely, he's slowly plugged away, and you don't know how good the Suzuki is. You really don't. I mean, Vermeulen and Hopper are on it. They're very good riders, but no disrespect to them at all. It would be, you got to wait to, if like Rossi got on it, to see how good it really is right now. He might be riding it harder than anybody could right now. No one knows that. But yeah, it's also one of those things. I don't know if I want to jump on the thing. I don't know how good it is. I don't want to get my butt kicked and finish 15th place on tracks I don't know in a different culture. It's just asking for it. But it's, like I said, it's something that, I think he wanted to be in the GP level. He wanted to race against the best in the world. And that's what he always wanted to do. I like it over here. I want to be the winningest AMA rider. Got a ways to go, but it's that's a goal of mine. And if the GP thing comes up, I might go ride over there, love the culture, love the bike, love the tracks, and do it. But not in the next 2 years, but maybe a couple wild cards, after my season or whatnot.
Two of your contemporaries over here are Jason DeSalvo and Roger Hayden. Suzuki put you on a superbike before those factories put those riders on superbikes. Do you think that the right way to go with the young rider is to put him in the premier class as soon as possible?
It depends how their mentality is, their matureness, I guess. One thing Kevin's always told me is, and was a known fact about Kevin Swantz, is he rode the wheels off the thing, he would crash it. He didn't want to finish third, he wanted to finish first. I will take a fourth place before I want to hit the ground fighting for the lead. Roger, I think, should have been on one, probably a year before he was. DeSalvo, there's not much to say about that. I mean, he's definitely got speed. It seems like sometimes in the later stages of the race, in super stock and super sporty, that's when everybody else is kind of stronger to him. There's no doubt he's got the speed, obviously, by qualifying. He's got talent. He doesn't do things that people think he should do, I guess, all the time, and a lot of people look at things he does, and it's like, wow, what are you doing? But Superbike's a whole different animal. It's the bikes are stiff, they slide around. It's a totally different feel from super stock, and the last 8 laps, you got to bring your game. It's you got to match your time or go faster when the tires are gone. And it's a lot of people think, oh, it's just another 30K from Superstock, but it's a totally different animal. And the bikes are a lot harder to ride, a lot harder to set up. If you don't have it, if you don't know about bike setup, you can't get comfortable on it. You're going to have a hell of a time on it. And I think it was, Raj seems like he's got a really good head on him, and Jason, I don't know if he does some things he does to get the attention he does, or make people whatever not like him. I don't know, but he, like I said, he's got the speed, and he puts it together sometimes. But I guess we'll see when he thinks he's going to win in Superbike. I guess that's what I hear. So we'll see when he gets on a bike, and he's got to set one up, see what happens. He might win races. I have no clue. I hope that doesn't happen, but we will see when he gets up there.
The thing that has surprised me the most this season is the lack of a response from Matt on the track at times. You go by him or qualifying or something along those lines, and you think that you expect Matt to hit back hard, and it doesn't come.
It's one of those deals. Matt hasn't raced with somebody in a few years. He always breaks away, can put it on cruise control and wins, and he did it perfect. I mean, that was awesome. He did it last year. I like to battle it out. I mean, for sure, and I like to really think about stuff and not do stupid things. And with qualifying, he's the master at qualifying pretty much. And the last 2 times we got pole, I mean, at Fontana, I left, I think, from a perfect lap, a half-tenth out there. And he was 2.5 tenths off that, and I could easily see being there. And that was a very good lap. And I'm talking perfect lap was 22.8.5, and it's he's definitely not slouching. I mean, if you look at last year's, we've stepped it up. And the lack of response, he at Barber, I was right when the whole lapper thing issue, I was turning it up that lap, and I was just going to go for broke to the end of the race and see what happened. Then he fell the next day if he was trying to get away because he saw I wasn't, he saw Tommy was in between us. I don't know if he was trying to get a gap, just pushed it down in there, which is where he crashed is a very easy place to crash. And, he fell down there, and at Fontana it seems like he had a little bit of a problem. In the second one, we got around him and put our head down, but I feel like I really couldn't have done much better in all those races. It's not like he just wasn't, how much of a gap did he have on second place? He's doing the same thing he did last year almost. And basically it's just I'm right now able and willing, if I can run with him the first 5 laps, I'm going to run that pace the rest of the race. And I don't know. Matt's gonna change what he needs to change to be up front. And it's not that he's not as racy as everybody, but like I said, the last few years he's done his own thing, and he's it's not that he forgot how to race, he just hasn't done it in a while, and he's gonna, like I said, if anybody's gonna do it, he's gonna do it. I respect him the most out of anybody in the pits, and there's no doubt about that. We've had our little spits and spats and whatever, and haven't got along sometimes, but when it comes to, like I said, in my garage, I still have a poster of him on a Kajiva from '93. I mean, he's a guy I look up to, and I expect him to turn it around and probably do the same thing that I've done the last couple races to me, and that's all fun. I mean, I won a championship. He's the same type of racer I am. He would rather battle the whole race, win by half a wheel, than win by 15 seconds. Because that satisfaction you get working your butt off and winning the race is there's none other than that. And he's, like I said, he could flip the script too the next couple races and turn it up. And like I said, he says all he can do is what he can do, and that's all I can do, and that's what I'm worried about. And if he hands it to me, or if we have a race and I barely get him or he gets me, that's just what happens.
What'd you do to celebrate the 4 wins?
I really didn't do anything. I just, a lot of people would think, you win a couple races, you kind of slack a little bit, have some fun. We pretty much, Monday after that race, I've been training as hard, now that I've won, I've got that, that feeling of it. And, used to last year in the beginning of the race, I finished second I could be, I finished, second to Matt. No big deal. I mean, because like in the world, I think him and Troy Bayliss are the two best world superbike racers. That's my opinion. I finished second to him at Daytona. I wasn't mad. I knew I couldn't get around him on the banking. I wasn't going as good up on the banking as he was, and couldn't get around him. And then the next few races, it just, it played into my hands. But, it's just, I won those couple races, and I just want to win so much more. And I've been training, and now I don't want to get beat by him. When I get beat, I'm going to be mad. And that's how it should be. I mean, that's what you got to have to beat that guy. And used to, I just kind of take it because it was normal. And now I want to beat him, and I want to make a championship out of it and make him. If he's going to win it, I want him to work. And he hasn't had to work that hard to win these last couple races, the last couple championships. And I'm willing to stick it out there. And if the bike keeps going the way it's going, and I'm as comfortable, we're going to keep trying to run up front and see what happens.
Your crew chief, Tom Halsworth, has worked with a lot of riders in the last decade. Colin Edwards, Tom Kipp, Anthony Gobert. He's been around the block. He's been with a lot of different teams. Mm-hmm. He's got a vast experience level. How does that help you? It's got to help big.
Yeah, I mean, it was, at first he had more experience than I did, and he was definitely searching to try to make the bike better, sometimes making it worse just because I couldn't tell him exactly what it was doing, and he was just trying to find something, trying to find me that feel I needed. Now I can come in and he can be like, well, remember when we did this and we did that, and I'll go, I don't come in like some of the riders do and just say, hey, give me 3 clicks here, 3 clicks there, because that's not your job. That's their job. You tell them exactly what the bike's doing on the track. That's what I'm able to do. And he says, well, let's try this. And I'll be like, well, if we can put some ride height in it or do that, whatever. I'm getting a lot better with that, and I'm making his job a lot easier, where I just got to pay attention and know what the bike's doing on the track. If you can know exactly what, feel what the bike's doing on the track, you don't know how to fix it. But if you just tell them what it's doing, they'll fix it. And they know what it's, what it's going to do. So, having him and having the team I got is a big help. And, also riding a bike that works as good as it does the Suzuki obviously helps. Matt, that's, and another, some of the things is to Matt, he's developed that bike and he's got it where it's at. And, then it's just my crew. I couldn't ask for more right now, and they're doing what they need to be doing. I feel like I'm, kind of delivering for them, and we just got to keep plugging away. I don't want to stop right now. I want to keep getting better and getting faster.
All right, that's it with Ben Spies. Thanks, Ben, for swinging by to the Soupkast. And as most are certainly aware by now, Ben Spies did indeed win both races at Infineon, and he has now equaled Miguel Duhamel's consecutive win record in U.S. Superbike racing. Although Miguel will tell you he did them on single race weekends and also won the 600 race back when men were men. Of course, the big question now becomes, can Ben Spies eclipse Duhamel's record when the series travels to Road America next week? Stay tuned. Sears or Infineon? The assembled crowd roared when Miguel Duhamel mistakenly called the track he was standing on Sears Point on the podium at Infineon, which I think touches on a point that means a great deal to race enthusiasts. What do you do when they change the name of your racetrack? Sears Point changed its name in the early 2000s when they sold the naming rights to the track to Infineon Technologies. Infineon Technologies makes computer parts and presumably are huge race enthusiasts, or simply wanted better exposure for their brand at a track near Silicon Valley. The name change hasn't gone over very well for some fans. Every single time we refer to the track as Infineon on the site, a few emails creep in from angry fans who share with us a rant on why the track isn't called Sears Point any longer, or at least Infineon at Sears Point. Laguna Seca has a circuit sponsor, Mazda, but they simply modified the name of the track instead of renaming it, and everyone honestly pretty much ignores the Mazda part of the track's new name, thus it's not that much of a problem. Infineon, though, is no longer Sears Point, and without putting too fine a point on it, the guys at Infineon, the racetrack, don't really care for it when you refer to their track as Sears Point. Not that it stopped us for several years. This year was the first time that I repeatedly called the track Infineon on the site. I didn't do so previously because I secretly hoped that the track would change the name back for some odd reason. Perhaps Infineon, the company, would be swallowed up in some giant tech industry merger or bankruptcy and cease to exist. And they'd have to call it Sears Point again. But as the years passed, that didn't look any more likely than it did the day the name change was announced. On the positive side, Infineon is one of the most progressive racetracks we have on the U.S. Superbike Tour in terms of upgrading facilities, being receptive to making their racetrack safer for the riders, and really, on the whole, they're pretty good guys at Infineon. I think, like it or not, if you live in America today, you just have to sort of accept or do a good job of ignoring the omnipresent crass commercialism that's, well, omnipresent. You could probably make a pretty good op-ed column about there actually not being any easily identifiable culture left in America today. That materialism, commercialism, and all things plastic have flowed over many things we used to take for granted, including, I guess, the long-held names of racetracks. If you've been to Europe, then you know that on many levels things are much, much different there. Some for the better, and some for, well, not. If you've been to Europe, then you know that on many levels things are much, much different there. Some for the better, and some, well, not. The one thing that Europe has going for it, I feel, is that they're not so quick to sell off a slice of history when an opportunity presents itself. You'd never see Monza or Imola or Donington Park change their long-held names just to cash in. I think if you even suggested that, you'd be laughed out of the room in some countries, or worse, in Italy. In America, like it or not, for better or for worse, that sort of thing is accepted. Sports stadiums all over the country bear the name of companies who paid for the naming rights. Recently, I was talking to a friend who shall remain nameless, who works in the upper echelon of NASCAR. I was complaining to him about the amazing media hype surrounding a series which I see as having very boring racing and unbelievably boring drivers. And I also lamented that there doesn't seem to be one facet of NASCAR that doesn't have some sort of sponsorship. I'm surprised the church service isn't sponsored at a NASCAR event. I wondered to him about the backlash they must face every day from their fans about the commercialism of their racing. That racing as a sacred contest between men with machines is lost in NASCAR. He said that it's actually the opposite, that the fans rarely mention anything about racing selling out to commercial interests, and it's only when a team or a driver or a track doesn't have a sponsor that the warning bells are rung. I think, somewhat sadly, the concept of an artist or a music group or a racetrack selling out and that being a really bad thing is something only a few people in America recognize today, for better or for worse. Everything is for sale in America. And of course, in closing, I should mention that our podcasts are sponsored by Honda. Thus, we're no better than anyone else.
Got me a new motorhome, so I just got to keep winning to pay it off.
Tennessee native Evan Williams has written extensively for the SuperbikePlanet.com website since 2000, and he's covered many a U.S. Superbike race for the site over the years. I sat him down for a brief chat at Infineon, and we spoke about a variety of subjects. Evan's background is actually in criminal justice, thus he's fairly unique at the site, because while the place may be teeming with people who have been or really should be arrested, he's the only one who has actually legally broken down someone's door with his shoulder. Okay, we're chatting with Evan Williams, who writes for Superbike Planet and has done so since 2000. You'll find his stuff in features and news. Evan has covered the U.S. Superbike Series for us for several years and is the site's go-to guy for Superbike news here in the U.S. Evan, how about some warm-up questions?
Sounds fine.
What are you riding these days?
These days I'm riding a Ducati Monster. And I have to admit, it's kind of rekindled my love for motorcycling.
Rekindled, really? Because...
Well, you know how it is when you're in the motorcycle industry. A lot of times you become a little jaded on bikes. You know, it's the latest and greatest only to be superseded by next year's model?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of the greatest fallacies in the industry, in the motorcycle riding industry anyway, is that we ride all the time when in reality, most days if you do ride to the office or do ride to work, you're doing really well.
Oh, for sure. It's easy, especially with the travel situation, to live on planes all the time during the season, and then it's wintertime when you get done.
Your Monster, is it stock? Which model Monster is it? I can't remember.
It's a 2003 M800 SIE, and it's far from stock, as my wife and my bank account will attest.
Cool.
It's basically $200 every time I go down to the Ducati dealer, but that's part of the fun of it, too. Let's see, he's got an exhaust on it, quite a few aftermarket parts, some new seats, carbon, etc.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I guess the thing about it is you kind of, when you own an Italian bike, you got to love it a little bit more,
Yeah, that's certainly a truism.
Yeah, and, sometimes it's fun just to go down the garage late at night and clean her off one more time before you put the cover back on.
Cool.
Yeah, what about you? What are you riding these days, Dean?
I'm actually not riding these days. I have been trail riding my CRF with my two sons, but aside from, I haven't ridden a street bike in about 2 months, I think. Ducati picked up their Multistrada right before the warm weather hit in Minnesota, and been awaiting delivery of bikes. And right before I left to come here to Sears Point, or Infineon, as some call it, Honda dropped off an 800 Interceptor, so I'll have something to ride when I do return. But the only thing I've had to had to ride in the garage is my very weary 1981 GPZ 550 Kawasaki, and I'm sure there are people that wax romantically about old bikes, and they love old bikes, and that's great. I used to love old bikes. I'm not sure why, but my love of old bikes died an ugly death probably about 10 years ago.
Well, I notice when some guys think about the first bike they've ever owned, they say the name, and you can hear the angels singing in the background, but I don't really get that with you, Dean.
No, definitely not. It's sacked out, it's slow, it looks pretty nice, but, I just can't lose sight of the fact that if I were on a new bike, man, it'd be so much cooler to ride. So that's really where it's at.
Yeah, I think the romance of old leakers has really kind of going away now that we got modern fuel injection and more power, more CCs, nicer suspensions.
Definitely. Why don't we talk a little bit about the highs and lows of the 06 racing season from your perspective, Evan?
Please.
There's been, I guess off the top of my head, from an international standpoint, there's been a lot of amazing things that have happened. Got James Tolzlin winning that first race in Qatar, Rossi's winning Qatar, Casey Stoner putting a bike on pole, Pedrosa winning last week in China, and Nicky leading the world championship. What are you thinking? What are they?
For sure, for me in World Superbike, it's the reemergence of Troy Bayliss with Ducati. I didn't know how his career was going after a few years in MotoGP. I thought he might be coming to the end, but it's clearly the case that he is one of the best superbike racers in the world, and they've got that thing figured out over there, it looks like.
Absolutely. MotoGP, I know you don't follow it that closely, but any thoughts on the 06 season and what's happened?
I've been really surprised that Rossi and Yamaha have struggled like they have. I think it was kind of assumed that Rossi was the magic man and he could win on anything, but I guess there are clearly limits to that.
Yeah, good point. World Superbike, you've covered. MotoGP, how about U.S. Superbike? Some people call it AMA Superbike, but I don't.
Yeah, I think it's for sure surprising that Ben Spies has won 4 races in a row. Beat Mat Mladin. Watching Mat Mladin over the years, I have a lot of respect for him. I've seen him do it year in and year out. And for someone to come and run with him and beat him 4 races in a row, to me, is rather remarkable. I thought Spies might be a little bit of ways away from challenging, but clearly he and his team have got their act together and are pushing Mladin very hard. What do you think? What do you think about the AMA this year? What stood out to you?
Well, clearly the Spies beating Mladin is the early story for sure, and might be the story of the season. I think I would actually go with just a little capsule of a moment that really defined a rider for me. again, and that would be Duhamel's crash at Daytona. And when he was leading the 200, he had a 15-second lead. He lost the front and crashed and landed on his head and his shoulder at 75 miles an hour. A thing that amazed me about the guy then is you look at the footage of the crash, and that guy hits the ground, and he's not even done sliding, and he's trying to get back up. He's rolling. He's running towards the bike. He picks the bike back up. The bike's damaged. His helmet is damaged. He's pushing off. I mean, there's a lot of riders, I think, that would have laid on the ground. I honestly believe that. And what he did, that's why guys race. That's why guys like Mat Mladin, Miguel Duhamel, and guys like that race, because it's in their DNA. It's in their spirit. It's in their soul. It's a win. I mean, you can't pay a guy to do something like that. I mean, what you're seeing there, he's not doing that because he's being paid. He's doing it because he wants to win, and that's really where it begins and ends with those guys. So really, that really did define things again for me with Miguel.
Well, what was notable about that to me was after the race, he was mad as a hornet because of the pace car debacle, and it just shows what kind of competitor he is, and he's just hardwired to be a racer. A couple of other riders have won races this year, but Nick leads the championship. Do you think those riders winning races takes away a little bit from his thunder?
Man, you can look at Nick's face in the photos from the podium, and you can tell he just wants to shoot himself. I think winning is everything to that guy, and he's very competitive, and he can put a pretty cute face on it and a pretty good PR face on it. But when he gets out of bed in the morning, he wants to win more than anything, and he doesn't like getting beat by anybody, and and that he is not sitting very well with him. I mean, no one needs me to say that. You can look at the photos from on the podium and just see that the guy is got a smile on his face, but he's seething with anger inside.
Yeah, I think Nick needs a win badly. I think that would ease a lot of tensions maybe, and I think that's what he really needs is a cure.
What else we got? You and I were talking books the other day. Have you read a good motorcycle race book recently?
Let's see. I guess I've been reading Dr. Costa's book lately.
Oh, yes. Dr. Costa's book.
The famous flowery Dr. Costa's book. I will admit I keep it in my restroom at home, and every once in a while I'll read a few vignettes out of there. But it's classic stuff.
Yeah, definitely. There's he's got a way with words, and he takes his writing quite seriously. There's some great stories in there. Yeah, but sometimes you're paging through it, and you're just shaking your head.
I would never equate Barry Sheen and the gods of Dionysus or however he comes across, but it's a great read and it's a lot of fun too. It's hard to not have a smile on your face when you're done with one of the short stories in there.
I recently picked up, what is this? Motorcycle Racing, published in 1969 by the Hamlin Publishing Group in London. I think I got this off eBay or somewhere.
Wow,
that's great. The reason I got it, it's got all these great rider biographies from the 1950s and 1960s, like Ralph Bryan's, Mike Halewood.
Wow.
Yeah, good stuff. One of the books I've enjoyed lately because it's got a biography in there about Ralph Bryan's and Hugh Anderson and riders, that in England were quite important and are still remembered today. But in their American counterparts, man, beyond Dick Mann, I have a really hard time naming American riders from the early 1960s. I guess Bart Markle, guys like that. Maybe I just wish there was more of a historical record of what they've done and what happened. I mean, you mentioned the people today. I'm sorry to say. I mean, you mentioned Gary Nixon's name to people today, and man, a lot of people, the majority of people are very unfamiliar with Gary's accomplishments, which shows what the state of the motorcycle historical record is here in the U.S.
Well, you can buy Ralph Bryan's replica helmet to this day, but our history fades out fast, I mean, even from the early 90s, you can't find race results online, I don't believe, for the AMA.
The first question we have on Soupkast Reader Mail, this edition anyway, is from Kerry Peterson, who asks, do you think this will be Neil Hodgson's last year racing in the United States? I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Neil's 32 and a half now, and has done just about everything that can be done in superbike racing, except win the U.S. Superbike title. He's won the British and Superbike titles and won the World Superbike Championship. He's done some time in GP and MotoGP, and in the end, he didn't like it too much there. The U.S. title seems to have a heap of importance to Hodgson, and I believe that he wants it to be the final jewel on the crown of his racing career. No one in history has won all 3 Superbike titles: British Superbike, World Superbike, U.S. Superbike. So, if he can indeed pull this off, it will be a worthy achievement for him. I also believe that Hodgson likes living here in the U.S. 6 or 9 months a year, and he genuinely enjoys the life and, of course, the weather in America as opposed to the weather in the U.K. and the Isle of Man where he lives. The $1 million, or right around $1 million anyway, question regarding Hodgson's future may very well be this. If he does continue to ride here in the U.S., will he also continue to ride for Ducati? Hodgson wants to win races and the title. Right now, that seems to be a pretty tough proposition on a Ducati in the U.S. Clearly, if your goal is to win the title, then a Suzuki ride is the well-worn path to choose. I'd be surprised to see Hodgson leave Ducati. He's always had a very close relationship with Ducati Corsa. It would be a monumental shift if he went elsewhere. But all these factors should make this upcoming silly season a cracker. Next, Mike Brown asks, some people in the press have already predicted that Rossi's title defense is over. Do you agree? I would never say that it's over with Valentino Rossi, although he is certainly fighting his way back now from a disadvantage that he's never seen before in the MotoGP class. Rossi's strongest traits in my mind are his mental strength and his ability to seemingly do the impossible. Experts such as Kenny Roberts and Colin Edwards II said Rossi would win races but not the championship when he left Honda for Yamaha, and they were soundly proven wrong by that lanky man from Italy. Thus, I think it's really early to be calling his championship run over in 2006. I wouldn't say that his run is over until it's a mathematical impossibility, and with the majority of the MotoGP season still to go, saying Rossi is finished is a bit premature. And finally, Amber Schneider asks, what does Team Jordan need to do to be competitive? I wonder if their goal is to be competitive or win races. I was of the opinion that when Jordan came racing, he was going to do so with the intent to win championships like Paul Newman has in Champ Car, or win races as David Letterman's team has in the IRL series. Instead, over time, I've gotten the vibe that Jordan likes having a motorcycle race team and enjoys being at the races. What he's done on the basketball court probably isn't as earth-shattering to the people who make up the U.S. motorcycle racing paddock as it is to Chicago Bulls fans. Motorcycle racing and ball sports are pretty diametrically opposed as activities, and the people they attract as fans, I believe. Jordan's been in the series for several years now, and although I've never spoken to him, from an observational standpoint, I'm of the opinion that, he'd better be making the much-rumored $100 million a year, first and foremost, because the life that he receives because of his celebrity isn't much of a life, in my opinion, and it's probably not worth it for anything less than $100 million a year, at least to me. He basically has no privacy unless he's in a controlled situation, and sometimes even in those situations it falls apart. 2 years ago at Brainerd, some mid-30s woman camped out by his car and waited for him in the paddock. Clearly, she wasn't any kind of race fan, but had heard that he was there and bought a ticket. She waited there for hours by his car door, and when he finally did walk to his car from the garage, she saw him coming and reacted like he was a messiah that had just appeared in a fog. She started crying and screaming, fell to the ground, and just went to pieces as he stepped over her and got into his car. Those situations are rare in bike racing, for Jordan anyway. So I think the motorcycle thing with Jordan is something he's keenly interested in, and the environment is such that he's not hounded as he would be in public normally. Last year at Elkhart, Jordan had a hospitality suite next to the press room, and although we were asked not to take pictures or even look in that direction by the media people, I must confess that I did steal a look or two. And I'm glad I did, because I think I gained a lot of understanding as to why Jordan is really in this racing deal. I looked over there from time to time, and it certainly appeared to be that Jordan and his friends and family were having essentially a normal weekend at the races, like any other family that drags their family and friends to the track to relax. Jordan and his friends were outside smoking cigars and drinking beers while the women sat inside and watched the monitors. Kids were running around, and Jordan had a look on his face that I'd never seen before since he came racing. His guard was down, and he looked really happy. So I think the Jordan team isn't a conventional race team in my mind, which has as its intent to win races or the championship. I see it largely as Jordan's escape from his celebrity life. Again, if you've got a question for the Soupkast, send it to superbikeplanet@gmail.com. Thanks.
It's a family website.
Yeah, it's a family website. The World Superbike Championship Series is back this weekend after a layoff after their most recent round at Monza. Troy Bayliss is almost fully in charge of the series now with 5 race wins in a row. But behind him, there's some interesting things to ponder. Number one thing to ponder, is Alex Barros trying to get the worst starts in the history of racing? An immediate example being his second race start at Monza a few weeks ago. Barros went from one of the first rows of the grid all the way back to the high teens in the pack as they exited turn 1. And all this with no mechanical problems to blame, other than he says his bike doesn't have the electronic starting gizmos that the other bikes do. Or is it just that he became accustomed to them in MotoGP? Barros was able to draft and nudge his way into the top 5 as the race ran down. Toseland running out of fuel helped, no doubt. But still, to have to work so hard after such a poor start was tough to watch. Number 2 thing to ponder, is Troy Corser on the cusp of the lamest title defense in WSBK history? Or at least the lamest since James Toseland's lame title defense? Corser's Suzuki appeared to be short at least 1 gear at Monza. Bayliss seemed to even slow down at one point in race 2, let Corser catch up, and then Bayliss left him in the dust again. Corser did set Superpole at Monza, but aside from that, he was in safe mode all weekend. Can't win a championship that way, or can you? Point to ponder number 3. Silverstone is the home track of James Toseland, so one can reasonably expect good things from him this weekend. Right? But what of the bike? The Tenkata machine ran out of gas in race 2. A rare mechanical mistake from a team known for making very few mistakes ever. All in all, Silverstone should be a very interesting round.
Soupkast is brought to you by American Honda.